Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and some days we have a lot of information, some days we have a little. Today is one of those a lot days. I'm going to start with David Schwartz. He did an interview with Decrypt, and I've been telling you for a long time, this space does not scale without institutional grade custody. That's where all the big money will be. That's where you'll have access to the big financial services that you're going to want and need. It's just the way it is. That doesn't mean self-custody shouldn't be an option, but this is where we're going, where you don't even know what the people coming are. They're not going to care or know what a private key is.
I think also just better user experiences. We're really if people are going to be able to use a blockchain, they're not going to have to. They're going to have to not. It's going to have to be the case where you can use a blockchain without having to know what a private key is, or without having to know what a blockchain is. Like, it's just going to have to just work. And I think we're really close. I think we're just like a couple of months away from turning some of those corners to true mass adoption, providing the financial services that like ordinary people around the world need. And that's why we've been doing this.
So, while you may as well be positioning yourself now, folks, I have been. I've got a lot of my XRP at iTrustCapital, where I get free institutional custody. They use 3 providers: Coinbase Prime, Fidelity Digital Assets, and Fireblocks. So they have 3 major institutional custody platforms. They're all it's free for you to use. You also have the closed loop system, so that it's dollars and crypto in, but only dollars out. This creates the ultimate barrier against all these hacks and all this stuff you hear about. You can go to iTrustCapital.com. They are my partner. Go to iTrustCapital.com/XRPArmy, and then there will be a promo code if you are just opening an account to get a $100 funding bonus. You can open a crypto IRA or a premium custody account, which is a regular account. You can literally send your crypto in there when you open it up. You can do both if you'd like. I have both. We've got a $3.07 XRP. We got 3.83 trillion in this market. We're about to tick back up, I have a feeling, folks. That's what it feels like. And here is another great clip. This is about XRP Ledger enterprise adoption, but I do have a warning. This is adults only. No silly, childish stuff. You know, the only way any of this stuff is going to work if it's regulatory compliant. It's always been that way. That's what drew many of us to what Ripple was working on into XRP early on, because we saw this one company that was working with regulators from the beginning, while everybody else was yelling down with the banks, down with the government. Okay? I thought that was silly.
I think that they're going to be, I think stablecoins are a good example. Stablecoins are a heavily regulated product. They're produced by institutions. They're subject to clawback and freeze, and yet they've enabled an open DeFi ecosystem. So I think that's the model that's going to repeat. So I don't want people to think that compliance is in any tension with decentralization and openness. I think the philosophy we've used on the XRP ledger, and I think that's going to drive the industry, is that people should be able to comply with the law. Because if they can't comply with the law, they probably won't use it. But the XRP ledger doesn't have a government that runs it. Bitcoin doesn't have a government that runs it. And the ledger, the layer 1, shouldn't be choosing what rules people have to follow, other than obviously the technical ones to enable the system. So I just want to say we should see compliance as an enabler of decentralization and openness, because it'll bring the enterprise tools, and then people will be able to like I might have some incredibly regulated financial product that I hold, and I might use it as collateral in some DeFi completely open thing. We can build those bridges where we can have compliance without having to turn the whole blockchain into something regulated. So the XRP ledger started with the trust line model. Recipients have to opt into the assets they want to receive. So it's not like many other blockchains where you just get 40,000 garbage assets handed to you, which allows things like know your customer gating. We have escrow functionality so that assets can be time locked and conditionally released, which allows structured products, institutional settlement. There's ways that you can control who pays you. There's ways you can control who owes you money. There's clawback. So if a court, you can actually have legal obligations represented on the ledger. And if a court says a legal obligation doesn't exist, then it doesn't. And so you need to be able to remove it. We have, as you mentioned before, there's only one DEX. The XRP ledger is a DEX. But we've just recently come out with a feature that allows you to create permissioned portions of the DEX that interoperate with the unpermissioned portions. So, I can prove that I'm not a terrorist, and I will at least know, as far as anyone knows, I haven't been sanctioned by some agency as a terrorist, and I can prove I'm a U.S. citizen. And so you can have some asset that, only U.S. citizens who approve they're not terrorists or EU members, can access, and you can bridge that with XRP on the ledger, and so you can have these sort of zones of that are restricted to particular participants, and that will enable better institutional adoption because we want institutions to be able to use the DEX. But if a terrorist might be providing the liquidity for their payment, it's a non-starter without having to turn the whole DEX into a permission DEX. We're looking at domain level asset verification, so users will know that they're interacting with the correct issuer, all at the protocol level. So it will be a seamless, it'll be a ledger level feature that seamlessly works with all the ledger's tools. And I think that will be very attractive. If I'm right, that the sort of enabling thing for the next generation of sort of retail adoption, mass DeFi, is tokenized real world assets and these other institutional lending. Then this is the design that's going to enable those both to coexist on a public layer.
There you go. Look at this. This today could be the day. This is from Cointelegraph. The SEC is expected to deliberate Ripple's decision to withdraw its appeal August 7th. Today is August 7th. Will this finally put the XRP case to rest? Dun dun dun. Now, folks, it's not a coincidence that Caitlin Long is coming out railing against Ripple. At the same time, you have the this organization is I guess International Community Bank. Let's see. Doesn't say there. International Community Bank Association is what I'm assuming that is. They're writing these banks are writing a letter to the comptroller of the currency to try opposition to Ripple's National Trust Bank charter application. Folks, none of this is a coincidence. These are the same forces that have been working against Ripple all this time. If I was a betting man, I would say the SEC lawsuit itself was something that the SEC was put up to by some market forces. Not necessarily this one, I'm just saying. And here it is. Get your popcorn ready. This is David Schwartz replying to Caitlin Long. I'm available whenever you want to chat about the facts about Ripple, our stablecoin RLUSD, and the XRP ledger, and its native token XRP. Started with some basic ones above. Vet started with some basic ones above, up there. So poor Caitlin Long has been called out officially. If you want to know what they're all really upset about, it's this. They know that when Ripple comes in, it's going to be tough for them to compete with what Ripple's offering. As of the latest available data, early 2025, Ripple Labs holds approximately $1.5 billion in cash and a significant amount of XRP in escrow, with the estimates suggesting they control around 37.13 billion XRP, valued at roughly 87.25 billion in escrow, plus an additional 4.56 billion XRP worth 10.72 billion in their blockchain addresses. They know that there is no competition once Ripple comes in. And here's David Schwartz on what he thinks is going to happen.
I think what's going to happen is there's going to be use cases where digital assets like XRP and Bitcoin make sense, where volatility is either an advantage or not a disadvantage. And there'll be other cases where a sort of more stable token like RLUSD or some other stablecoin will make more sense, where either the volatility is a disadvantage or where the recipient doesn't want to deal with the complexity of having a volatile asset. So I think you're going to see enterprise use cases in everything from trade finance to tokenized real world assets. Essentially, almost everything is a payment. Like a loan is a payment, right? If you borrow money from me, I pay it to you, and you pay me back. Tokenized securities. If you're buying Apple stock, you're spending money to buy that Apple stock. And when you sell it, there's always a payment on the other side. And so I think one use case for stablecoins will be as a payment asset where the recipient doesn't want to deal with the volatility and where the recipient just wants to sort of have a fixed amount of payment. And it's especially going to be interesting for applications where the endpoint recipient of the funds is not somebody who's sort of interested in participating in the digital asset space, like you're buying groceries. Your grocery store owner might be interested in participating in the digital asset space, but probably they just want to receive dollars. And so it allows the endpoints to not have the complexity. Whether how useful will be sort of inside the internals and the machinery, I think collateral will be one case. So like if you use a digital asset for collateral, you have to significantly over collateralize. Like if you're going to use XRP as collateral, it could have in value tomorrow. It probably won't, but it could. And if you're using it as collateral, the person who's accepting the collateral probably doesn't want to take that risk. So it's a little awkward to use digital assets for collateral unless if you have a lot of it and it's a tax optimization, yeah. But we're not going to rebuild the new financial system on tax optimizations for people who have lots of digital assets, right? Like for collateral, like you're going to want more stable assets. And one of the interesting things from Ripple's point of view is like prime brokerage is like Hidden Road, which we're in the process of acquiring, like have a lot of collateral. And so looking at very efficient ways to use stablecoins like RLUSD to have that collateral easier to move around and more liquid and so on. I think
there you go. Then we've got this. There's approximately $9 trillion in American 401ks. Trump set to approve 401k access to crypto and alternative assets via executive order. And here it gets more specific. Reportedly looking to sign executive order to allow crypto, private equity, and real estate investments in 401ks. That would be massive. Okay. Is XRP ready to take flight? We're going to talk about that in the private group at the Patreon, which is daixrp.com. You can also join by clicking join below any of my YouTube videos, or you can hit subscribe on X. We do the full video plus the extended video with no commercials. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Away we go.